Forget everything Hollywood taught you about ancient Egypt. No gaunt slaves toiling under the lash, building pyramids for a crust of stale bread. No endless displays of gold and mysterious priests lurking around every corner. The reality along the banks of the Nile was far harsher, more complex, and stranger than we often imagine. Behind that mystical facade lay a vast, bustling hive of activity. This was a society governed by strict laws, filled with everyday problems, ambitious workers, and joys that feel remarkably familiar. Today we'll journey step by step through the genuine life of an ancient Egyptian, from birth to the passage into eternity. So, settle in. Our exploration begins now. The story of every Egyptian begins with a lottery, where the prize is the entirety of one's future life. Ancient Egyptian society resembled a rigid pyramid. At its radiant peak stood the pharaoh, a living god. Just below him were the nobles, priests, and scribes. At the base, in the dust and toil, toiled countless farmers and slaves. Your ticket to this life was drawn the moment you took your first breath. The process of birth itself unfolded as a true ritual, steeped in magic. Egyptian women didn't lie in beds like we do today. Instead, they gave birth while squatting, supported by special birthing bricks, or seated on unique chairs. This posture was so iconic that the hieroglyph for "to give birth" depicted a woman in exactly that position. To protect mother and child from malevolent spirits, they drew protective circles around them using magical wands made from ivory, engraved with guardian deities, the fearsome dwarf Bes and the hippo goddess Taweret. But the divide between social classes became stark in the surroundings. If you were born into an elite family, childbirth occurred in private chambers of vast villas, or even in special pavilions within the palace. After giving birth, a royal mother entered strict isolation for 14 days for purification, while professional wet nurses, a highly esteemed position, immediately took on the care of the newborn. Life was different for ordinary people. Women often left the settlement to give birth in designated areas. In craftspeople's homes, like those in Deir el-Medina, they built high beds, brick platforms with steps that served as both birthing spaces and home altars. But where did infants sleep? The contrast becomes even starker. Noble heirs rested in exquisite wooden cribs, their legs carved to resemble animal paws. In contrast, a peasant child often found a home in a simple wooden box that once held clothing or a basket made of reeds. Archaeologists have uncovered these boxes beneath the floors of houses. They served as both the child's first bed and, sadly, sometimes their final resting place. But something united them all. Every infant, regardless of status, was tightly swaddled in striped linen. Their heads were shaved, leaving a distinctive lock of youth on the right side. Around each neck they hung an amulet, a golden one for the son of a noble, a simple earthenware piece for the farmer's child. And of course, there was the name. Parents often chose theophoric names for their children, like Amenhotep, which means Amen is pleased, hoping to secure the favor of a specific god from birth. This marked the beginning of their journey. The son of a pharaoh wrapped in swaddling represented the blessing of the gods, destined to be a future ruler. Meanwhile, the farmer's son was set to become a laborer in the fields. Their fates were sealed. Imagine stepping onto a playground in ancient Egypt. At first glance, you wouldn't easily distinguish the son of a noble from the son of a potter. It's not about school uniforms. In fact, there were none at all. Until they reached their teenage years, children of all social classes ran around completely naked. The only thing they wore was a protective amulet around their necks. Their hairstyles were uniform, heads shaved clean, with a single long lock of hair hanging down on one side, what we now call the lock of youth. Their games were quite similar too. Children kicked balls made of leather or stuffed with straw, and they rolled wooden horses on wheels. In the evenings, whether in palaces or huts, they gathered around to play board games. The most popular was Senet, a strategic game loved by all classes alongside dogs and jackals, where pieces moved across a board filled with holes. But childhood ended swiftly. Here, the social divide established at birth became undeniable. Education marked the point where their paths would forever diverge. Boys from elite families attended schools near temples or scribes' homes. But don't imagine they filled rolls of expensive papyrus with their scribbles. Papyrus was too valuable for mere student doodles. Instead, future officials practiced their writing on ostraca, ordinary shards of broken pottery or fragments of stone. These were their notebooks and drafts. What about the children of ordinary Egyptians? Their classrooms were the fields or workshops. No hieroglyphs, no pottery shards. They simply stood beside their fathers, learning the craft or mastering the art of farming. The son of a carpenter became a carpenter, while the son of a farmer took up the hoe. Education wasn't a right, it was a privilege reserved for the few. Where you live and how you smell depends directly on whether you were fortunate enough to be born in a palace or in a hut. Surprisingly, even the grand palaces of pharaohs weren't built from eternal stone. They consisted of vast complexes made from sun-dried mud bricks. Picture a labyrinth filled with gardens, pools, and luxurious chambers for the harem, where walls burst with vibrant frescoes. Nearby, the mansions of the nobility could rise. True estates with up to 70 rooms. This is where the real marker of status emerges: personal hygiene. In the mansions of Amarna, the elite enjoyed private bathrooms, but this wasn't just lounging in bubbles. You stood behind a low partition while a servant poured water over you from a pitcher, letting it flow into specially designed limestone drains. Soap was non-existent. Instead, the wealthy used cleansing creams made from oils, lime, and fragrant spices. And what about toilets? For the nobility, these facilities were conveniently located right next to the bedroom. A brick seat with a hole, and below it, a pot filled with sand that servants discreetly replaced. Some even had drainage channels that carried waste away to external moats. The world of the priests was completely different. For them, purity was a sacred duty. They bathed in holy temple pools several times a day, preparing to stand before the gods in perfect cleanliness. Now, let's dive into the depths. A typical peasant's home resembles a cramped box made of mud and straw where you live alongside donkeys and pigs. There's no bathroom. Your bathtub, the Nile, or an irrigation canal. If you're lucky, you might have a basin filled with water. Forget luxurious creams. You use a paste made from animal fat and chalk. And as for toilets, they simply didn't exist. People relieved themselves in the backyards, into the river, or just out on the street. This created enormous problems. Even in planned cities like Kahun, stone drains along the streets only carried away rainwater. Solid waste and filth piled up on the outskirts or in abandoned homes. It became a paradise for rodents. Archaeologists discovered evidence in the workers' quarters showing that rats had literally gnawed their way through the walls of living spaces. Now, let's return to the house. If you were wealthy, you slept on a wooden bed with intricately carved lion's paw legs. If you were poor, you settled for a mat or a clay ledge. But there was one detail that leveled the playing field: pillows. Or rather, the lack of them. Both the pharaoh and the laborer rested their heads on hard wooden or stone headrests. This unusual design cradled the neck, preserving elaborate hairstyles while providing a cool touch in the heat. In a world scorched by the sun, clothing isn't just a shield against the cold, it's a declaration of identity. During this era, linen stood out as the primary fabric. It might seem like a universal material, but the divide between social classes was palpable, almost tangible. If you were a pharaoh, your linen was like woven air. So sheer it nearly became transparent, barely concealing your body. In stark contrast, if you were a peasant, you wore rough, coarse fabric that resembled burlap. Yet white linen served as a canvas for status. The true magic of prestige emerged through adornments. The elite literally bowed under the weight of gold, silver, and electrum, a blend of gold and silver. Nobles and pharaohs showcased massive necklaces and elaborate collars, encrusted with precious stones. Meanwhile, ordinary people could only mimic this opulence. Their gold, it came in the form of faience, a blue ceramic. Their jewels, simple painted beads and amulets made from affordable materials. Let's take a closer look. Down to the feet. The pharaoh walks across the land in leather sandals, sometimes even lined with fur. an astonishing luxury in such a climate. Most of his subjects, however, never knew what shoes were, spending their lives barefoot. Only on long journeys did they wear simple sandals woven from papyrus, which wore out quickly. Yet, there was one feature that united everyone: the king, the slave, men, and women alike. That feature was makeup. Their eyes, heavily lined with black coal, tell a deeper story. This wasn't just a trend or a matter of aesthetics, it was a medical necessity. The thick black eyeliner shielded the delicate skin of their eyelids from the blazing sun, reflecting light. More importantly, it acted as a barrier against infections, an ever-present danger in the Nile Delta's climate. When it came to judging an Egyptian by their clothing, a quick glance at their plate could reveal their place in the social hierarchy. Food served as the ultimate measure of wealth. Imagine a feast in a pharaoh's palace. Tables overflow with an abundance of meat, prime cuts of beef, game, and even antelope. Wine flows freely, dishes are lavishly drizzled with sweet honey, and for dessert, they serve exotic delicacies of the time like coconuts and pomegranates. Now, let's peek into the humble abode of a common farmer. Here, the menu looks much more modest. Bread and beer form the backbone of survival and the main source of calories. They get their vitamins from vegetables with onions, garlic, and lettuce always on the table. For a peasant, beef was an unattainable luxury, reserved for major celebrations. Instead, they relied on fish caught from the Nile to meet their daily protein needs. But within this culinary hierarchy exists an unexpected layer that dined far better than the average citizen: the pyramid builders. For years, pop culture has led us to believe that the pyramids were constructed by overworked slaves, whipped into submission. Forget that notion. Excavations of the city of the builders on the Giza Plateau have completely changed this narrative. A team of archaeologists studied hundreds of thousands of bones and discovered that to feed an army of 10,000 workers, they slaughtered nearly 2 tons of animals each day. The pharaoh understood perfectly. To haul stones, workers needed protein and calories. That's why builders received lamb and goat meat every day, while overseers enjoyed the luxury of beef. They also got fresh bread and hearty beer, thick as porridge. For an ordinary farmer, joining a state construction project, an obligation of labor, meant feasting like never before, at home. This is why Egyptians were eager to participate, not the oppressed slaves many imagine. The disparity in status wasn't just about food, it extended to their dishes as well. In the palaces, they served drinks in elegant faience cups and costly vessels made of carved stone and rare glass. Meanwhile, the homes of the poor used only practical pottery made from fired clay. One dining tradition united all Egyptians, from the pharaoh to the humblest farmer. None of them used utensils. Everyone ate with their hands. The only difference lay in how they washed away the grease after each meal. In the palaces, servants respectfully poured water over their master's hands, offering cleansing creams, an expensive concoction made from oils, lime, and fragrant resins. Meanwhile, the common folk relied on a harsher method: cheap paste made from animal fat and ordinary chalk. All right, we've eaten, dressed up, and now it's time to get to work. In ancient Egypt, your social status literally dictated how much sweat you would shed over your lifetime. Let's start at the very top. Do you think being a pharaoh was all about sipping wine and wearing fine linen? In reality, it was a colossal, around-the-clock responsibility. The ruler acted as the chief executive of the nation, issuing laws, personally commanding the army, and most importantly, performing intricate religious rituals every single day. The Egyptians believed that only these actions by the pharaoh maintained ma'at, universal harmony and order, preventing their world from descending into primal chaos. Now, let's move down a notch to the officials and scribes. This group represented the true elite, the white-collar class of Egyptian society. They genuinely believed their profession was the greatest blessing, freeing them from grueling physical labor. They ran the government. The Grand Treasurer oversaw wealth and taxes in the form of grain or livestock. Local mayors managed the settlements and served as judges, while messengers raced across the country, delivering decrees from the vizier. But Egyptian society wasn't just made up of kings, bureaucrats, and farmers. Underneath that surface, a vibrant layer of artisans, merchants, and service specialists thrived. Imagine the bustling streets. Here, workshops buzz with activity. Metalworkers and blacksmiths forge weapons, jewelers craft exquisite ornaments from electrum, and carpenters design those stunning chairs with lion paw legs. The Nile served as the main transportation artery, keeping pilots and boat builders busy, creating everything from papyrus rafts to intricate wooden vessels. Women predominantly operated the looms, weaving textiles that adorn the community. Speaking of women, they played a vital role in the markets, engaging in barter and even closing real estate deals. Commerce flourished. Merchants eagerly bought goods from artisans, while international traders brought luxurious imports to Egypt. Ebony, cedar, and exotic items like giraffe tails, used to create elite fly whisks for the nobility. In the city, you could find services to suit any need. Feeling unwell? Doctors earned immense respect and held specialized knowledge, treating specific ailments like muscle pain or infertility. Only women midwives assisted with childbirth. The elite enjoyed the expertise of hairstylists who crafted elaborate wigs from human hair. Banquets came alive with performances from professional musicians and dancers, making every gathering a spectacle. The police kept order in this bustling hive known as the Medjay. These paramilitary forces often recruited foreigners. Stately villas had stern gatekeepers, while a professional army guarded the borders, boasting elite archers and chariot drivers. But who fed all these people and filled the royal granaries? Of course, it was the farmers, the very foundation of Egyptian society. Their lives revolved around an unending cycle of grueling labor. From dawn until dusk, they toiled in the fields and cleared irrigation canals. When the Nile flooded, submerging the land and halting agriculture, the state called upon them for mandatory public works, known as corvée. It was their hands that built those magnificent pyramids and grand temples during the flood months. But what kept this colossal, multi-layered government machinery from descending into chaos? A rigid and uncompromising justice system. In ancient Egypt, there was no independent jury system as we understand it today. The source of every law came from the pharaoh, a living god on earth. His word was absolute truth, and challenging him was simply unthinkable. Yet, the pharaoh couldn't physically handle every dispute over a stolen sack of grain. That's where a strict hierarchy came into play. The pharaoh's right-hand man was the vizier, or chatti. He not only managed the administration but also served as the supreme judge in the most complicated cases, defending the interests of the royal family. At the local level, justice fell to the nomarchs, governors of the regions. In major cities like Kahun, there were actual courthouse houses where the mayor acted as the chief judge. And if you ventured into a typical village, you would find the council of elders, representatives from the most influential families who resolved everyday neighborhood disputes. These judicial committees were known as judjat, and later as kenbet. They had their hands full, as the Egyptians loved bureaucracy. Scribes meticulously documented everything, from marriage contracts to land transfers. Here lies a true surprise that shatters stereotypes about the ancient world. Egyptian women wielded remarkable legal power. Unlike many other ancient cultures, women in Egypt could own property, testify in court, write wills, and, most astonishingly, initiate divorce. When a divorce occurred, it sparked intense legal battles over the return of gifts, and a judge could strip the guilty spouse of their share of communal property. While civil courts may seem quite modern to us, the criminal law of Kemet was ruthless. Remember those mandatory state labor projects, called corvée, that we discussed in the previous chapter? Well, attempting to escape from such a project wasn't merely a form of absenteeism. It was treated as a state crime, punishable by death. For officials caught in corruption, an official blacklist existed, the criminal registry known as the Great Prison. For minor offenses, a criminal faced beatings, with a standard punishment of 200 strikes being quite common. For more serious crimes, the law inflicted lasting scars, brutal mutilations like the severing of noses or ears, after which the person would be sent to hard labor. In extreme cases, for great criminals, a horrifying practice of forced suicide was employed. Perhaps the most chilling aspect was that justice wasn't always personal. For a serious crime committed by one individual, the entire family could be condemned to lifelong slavery. Religion in ancient Egypt wasn't a once-a-week affair. It infused every breath and every step of daily life. Yet, nestled within this reality lies a grand paradox that's hard for the modern mind to grasp. Picture colossal, majestic temples, their architecture overwhelming in scale. Did you think anyone could just walk in and pray? Not at all. The official cult functioned as an exclusive, closed elite club. Only the pharaoh and the highest priests could access the deepest, shadowy sanctuaries where the statues of the main gods resided. For the average person, the very hands that built these temples, the doors remained forever shut. So how did the common people connect with the divine? The Egyptians found a remarkable and touching solution. Since they couldn't enter, they approached the deafening outer walls of the temples and left behind what they called ear steles. Yes, they literally brought stone tablets etched with human ears, hoping that the deity, locked away deep within the sanctuary, would hear their personal pleas through the solid stone. A vibrant, living faith simmered within the homes of ordinary Egyptians. They worshipped their beloved guardian deities at small household altars. Among their favorites were the fierce dwarf Bes and the hippo goddess Taweret, both already familiar from our tales of divine childbirth. These deities watched over sleep and protected against illness. Animals held a truly special place in daily religious life. Egyptians didn't just cherish them, they viewed them as embodiments of the divine. For instance, they revered the sacred bull Apis. And what about cats? Cats were considered the rightful guardians of the home. Their status soared so high that upon the death of these beloved pets, families didn't merely bury them, they often mummified them, offering them as sacred gifts to the great goddess Bastet. For the ancient Egyptians, death wasn't an end. It marked the beginning of a journey to a new, eternal home. They prepared for this monumental transition long before their final breath, especially if they held a high rank in society. The funerals of pharaohs and the elite were lavish affairs, showcasing unimaginable opulence. They underwent an intricate mummification process that lasted precisely 70 days. Then, the ruler would be placed within a real-life matryoshka of nested coffins and massive stone sarcophagi. Gold masks, precious gems, and the finest furniture, all the most valuable treasures, found their way into pyramids or rock-cut tombs. And of course, hundreds of Ushabti figures. These small statuettes served as magical servants, meant to spring to life and carry out all the labor for the pharaoh in the afterlife. After all, beyond this world, the ruler prepared to join the sun god Ra. For the middle class, the send-off was a bit more modest but still grand. They departed in elaborate processions aboard boats along the Nile. This is where professional mourners came into play, tearing their garments and dusting their heads with dirt, showing everyone just how revered the deceased truly was. What about the poor? They had no gold, no sarcophagi, and no grand tombs. Instead, they faced the simplest of burials, a shallow grave right in the scorching sand. Yet, here's the paradox. The very nature of Egypt worked in their favor. Thanks to the intense heat and the salts of natron in the desert, the bodies of these laborers dried out and naturally mummified, sometimes even preserving better than the royal mummies. Their modest graves held just a few clay pots and their personal tools. Despite the staggering differences in wealth and burial practices, the hopes of ordinary Egyptians remained bright and clear. They believed that after death, they would reach the fields of Yalu, an idealized version of their homeland. A place where the soil is eternally fertile, where the Nile floods at just the right time, and where the burdens of hard labor finally give way to endless joy, abundance, and peace. And so, we've traveled the entire journey of an ancient Egyptian, from the first cry to the leap into eternity. Ancient Egypt unfolds before us as a realm of colossal, staggering contrasts. Your fate was sealed the moment you emerged onto the birthing brick. Your life could be filled with the sense of luxurious incense and roasted beef, or it could be steeped in the aroma of Nile mud, hard labor, and cheap beer. You might don fine linen and wield power over the state, or you could spend your days cramped with livestock in a hut that would wash away with the first rain. Yet, through the millennia, we uncover more than just this social divide. We glimpse what connected these people. Both the all-powerful pharaoh, half-god, and the humble craftsman rested their heads on hard stone pillows. They lined their eyes with thick coal to shield themselves from the relentless sun. All of them, without exception, ate with their hands. And most importantly, they all shared a deep belief that beyond the threshold of death awaited the eternally fertile fields of Yalu, a place where need no longer existed. This was the vibrant, authentic everyday life of Kemet, an astonishing land that was far more complex, multifaceted, and intriguing than the dry paragraphs found in textbooks.